Howdy, and welcome to the Doof Book Club, our monthly live stream discussion of a book chosen by you, our listeners. My name is Matt Freeman, and joining me is my lazy, good for nothing business partner, Scott Daly.
I I can't even. How am I supposed to follow that? That's not fair.
You've lived in Texas longer than I have at this point.
Yeah, but but you see here. I think what happened here is you listened to the audiobook and that gave you a leg up because um that's probably how he read the audiobook, isn't it? Isn't it?
It's just because I'm a true Texan, and I just this voice right now. This is me putting on
Oh yeah.
mid what's it called? Uh, Atlantic.
Mid. I mean, it sounds nothing like the Mid Atlantic accent, but sure,
This,
it's that.
this is me doing a mid Atlantic accent, hiding my normal Texas accent, which is what you heard a minute ago.
Sorry, folks, you're gonna see some weird stuff happening because when I'm having to switch windows right now, it messes up Matt's thing because I don't know if y'all heard, but um, Skype was decommissioned this past month, and we had been using Skype for the past 2 years, longer actually, for our NDI source to get Matt's audio into the stream, and well, Discord doesn't let you do that, and Teams does if you pay them money. And so we are currently trying to find another way to get Matt's NDI stream into Streamlabs. Right now, all I'm doing is doing a monitor share and then cropping it. So here, look, Matt, I'm gonna pick your nose with my. It's actually not showing my mouse, which is actually pretty good for it. It should be showing my mouse, but it's not.
Is that why I look like gray? Because I look gray.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
You're a little sick. Yeah, Skype is now Teams, except if you want a Teams that you can be on a call for longer than an hour on, you have to give them money. So it's just like we were never fans of Skype, but now I'm also not a fan of Teams.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about books. We're here to talk about books. So I was just offering an explanation for why Matt looks a little sickly.
Oh.
What? Oh.
Someone said I was really quiet, but everyone else says I'm not. So
I'm confused.
that I don't know.
Insanely quiet. I'm like you. I have you turned up as far as you can go.
Okay. let's just see if anybody else thinks I'm super quiet. Let us know.
I mean, actually, it does. Like my audio output capture thing does make. I'm just gonna crank. I can crank this. Hold, please.
Yeah.
Hold,
I
please.
should always be loud.
Pay no attention to that thing that just appeared on the screen. Doot 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 doot. Okay, talk.
I should always be the loudest thing in the vicinity.
I feel like you sound louder to me, but I don't know if that translated in the thing.
Yeah, I don't know. How's that, everybody?
Is that any better?
Yeah, I took an arrow to the knee, folks. I'm sorry.
You're quiet.
This is where that. Hello. Yes, you're quieter than Scott, but not so quiet that it matters. Okay.
So okay. I mean, we're gonna look into solutions, but yeah, the thing is not like there's plenty of solutions we have to record podcasts on. We need a solution that allows it to send the NDI format to a streaming service. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, because back in the day they didn't have to deal with these problems. They had to deal with much easier problems, like just marching cattle, right?
Right. Life was much simpler when there was it's just you and the river and the copperheads. Focuses the mind.
Yeah. So hey everyone, how's it going? I see a lot of familiar names here. I see some new ones as well. Thank you all for coming. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday evening. If you're joining us for the very first time, hi, we are Doof Media. We make stories. We make podcasts. We don't make stories. We just talk. We talk a lot about all the stories that we love. We also arrange and organize this here monthly book club. Matt, what is a book club?
Well, the way this one works is that each month Scott and I select 5 books from a pool submitted to us by our wonderful Doof community. We put up a poll for all of our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/doofmedia and let them vote on which they'd like us to talk about. The book with the most votes wins, and then we all read it.
And then we meet here on the last Friday of the month to talk about it for an hour or so. We've been gone for 2 months because the book we're covering this month was a big old thick one, and so we wanted to give everyone, and by everyone we of course mean ourselves, sufficient time to get through it, to talk about it. Before we get into this month's book, though, we do have a little bit of work we need to do, because we have voting for next month's book. As Matt said, we let people on Patreon vote, but we also let people that attend the stream vote as well. So if you happen to be a patron, you get to vote twice. So I'm about to send a straw poll link. It will send you a link to vote for 2 of the 5 nominees. And I'm just noticing that my poll only has 4 entries on it. So don't click that link, everyone. Don't know what happened there. This has been a nightmare.
We'll get there.
I don't know if the link changed, but I'll send it again. There we go. That should work. You can choose 2 of the 5 nominees. We will add these votes to the votes that we got over on Patreon, and we will announce at the end of the show which book we're covering next month. But this month, Matt, what book are we talking about?
This month, we're talking about Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. The summary is as follows. A love story, an adventure, and an epic on the frontier, Larry McMurtry's Pulitzer Prize-winning classic, Lonesome Dove, the 3rd book in the Lonesome Dove tetralogy, is the grandest novel ever written about the last defiant wilderness of America. Journey to the dusty little Texas town of Lonesome Dove and meet an unforgettable assortment of heroes and outlaws, whores and ladies, Indians and settlers. Richly authentic, beautifully written, always dramatic, Lonesome Dove is a book to make us laugh, weep, dream, and remember.
Doesn't really tell at all what the book is about, though.
Yeah. Right.
I also, after reading this book, the first 3 words I would use to describe this book would not be a love story.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess we'll just jump into it, right? So
Sure.
So some folks were talking about how, especially with the TV miniseries, the reaction to the Lonesome Dove phenomenon was like, what an epic sweeping romance, and that McMurtry was sort of put out by this because he was like, no, it's supposed to be bleak and depressing. Not an actual quote. But my reaction upon hearing that was in the Hans Moleman voice. I thought it was bleak. I found this to be a real downer of a book, and that is not meant to mean I didn't like the book. I found it incredibly impactful and moving, but it's very down on humanity and sort of our flawed and cursed nature. Nobody in this book finds happiness. Everyone is their own worst enemy. It's great. It's great literature, right? It's just like, man, I'm mainly saying this because I agree with you that the idea that this is some kind of epic, romantic, uplifting adventure story. It's like, oh my God, no! Please don't go into the book thinking that that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's when I approach this, that's I hadn't read that particular summary, but I feel like the cultural osmosis of this book in my mind and the story was this epic Western, if you read one Western, read this one type of thing. And that is definitely what I was expecting. And for the record, I love this book. This shot up to on my list of one of my favorite books that we've covered on the book club. One of my favorite books ever. I loved my experience with it. I think it was such an easy and delightful read, and I say delightful not in I was happy reading along. I was often very, very depressed, but I enjoyed reading it. I really did. I think this is a remarkable novel, and I loved it. But yeah, I think you're right. Like I think that's the way to start. It's just so sad. It's so sad, and it's like everything feels so pointless. Like everything, like the perfect end of this book is Call taking Gus back to bury his corpse thousands of miles away just because he told him to. There's no point there. He's just doing it because his friend told him to, and he's gonna do it. And like, there's no point in them going to Montana. Nobody like really wants to do anything. Like, it's just like,
Right.
and like nobody gets what they want, or when they do get what they want, it's just like, yeah, okay. Like, it's just, oh my god, it's a wonderful book. But yeah, it's like, I've never read, so I should say I've never like read a Western novel, right? Like I don't, I've seen plenty of Western films, so many, but I've never like gone to the Western section of a bookstore and like grabbed a book and read it. So this is really like my first Western book. And I was just like, so like, I feel like I can't speak to it intelligently of like, this is a deconstruction of the entire genre, but it does kind of feel that way.
Yeah, I wonder. I was sort of half joking, half dead serious that I think it's very funny that this book came out within like 2 years of Blood Meridian
Yeah.
and The Gunslinger, which are all three of these books sort of feel like deconstructions of the Western genre. And of course, the irony there is those are the only three sort of Western novels I've ever really read. That's not quite true. I read a book when I was like really young, and it was more of an adventure than anything, but it was set in the West, so I count that one. Anyway, point is, there was something in the zeitgeist in the mid 1980s, I think, and I don't think it's that mysterious. You and I were talking about this earlier. It's basically just that the Western was this dominant genre in the culture for a long time, and it was sort of romanticized to a large degree.
Yes.
And I don't know, what the bellwether was in the mid 1980s, but it seems like something tipped everything to be like, no, it wasn't romantic. It was gritty and horrible, and it sucked, and everyone died, and then it's like, I don't know how causal it was, but it does feel like this trio, this more Blood Meridian in this book, I would say. That the Gunslinger is kind of a not quite the same thing, but the point being that these books may have played some role in changing the way people thought about westerns. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of like the Western genre was so dominant for so long that there's so many examples of this. Like, yeah, I agree, John, but like The Searchers is an order of magnitude different from this. Like, I mean, like I agree with that, but this, like, it to me feels like we reach a phase, and like it's so weird to me that this is a book that came out in 1985. Like if you would like bet money, I would have said this book came out in the 50s or 60s. Like that's just what in my head I just assumed that this book came out in. So I was very surprised to learn this book is a lot younger than I thought it was. It's a young, fresh book because it came out the year I was born. We're not old.
Yeah,
I promise.
Right.
And
yeah,
I think it's just, it's not even that it's gritty, right? Like there's been plenty of gritty westerns everyone's giving examples of right now. It's not even that it's like gritty or realistic or de-romanticized. It's just bleak. It's just horribly bleak. It's just like none of this is important. All of this sucks. People just die. I mean, the greatest example of this is the journey of July and his deputy and the people they meet along the way, where it's like you get into the part 2 of the novel and you meet these new characters and you're like, oh look, there's like gonna be this is another little side adventure that happens, and then they just, except for July, they all fucking die, like horribly.
And this includes the two like kids, basically.
Yes.
Where I think McMurtry is playing with us a bit because he introduces this little posse of delightful characters with Roscoe and the two kids.
Yeah.
And July, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be like our plucky band of adventures, and it kind of starts out that way with Roscoe just basically being a comic relief character, and having these hijinks, and like even when they're robbed by the bandits and then saved by July, it's played off as almost like a, Pirates of the Caribbean
Yeah.
esque, like, okay, there's violence here, but it's we're clearly striking sort of a whimsical adventure tone with Roscoe. Everything else can be kind of bleak, but Roscoe's gonna be our heart, and then he's gutted like a fish
Yeah.
along with the two kids, and you're just like, oh, I felt myself like deflate when that happened. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, Janie and
And Jim,
mm,
little
yeah,
Jim. Yeah.
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I mean, like, okay, yes, the book is very funny and beautiful, like, absolutely, John, but like, it's not a slog. Like, it's an enjoyable book to read, but also, like, bad things happen to literally every character. Like, the conclusion of the book is our main character dies. Our other main character, even at the very end, refuses to tell his son that he's his son and
mm,
gives him a horse, and everyone's just kind of sad,
yeah,
and and the
right.
end.
It's funny. So it's as if you're watching like a comedy, and all of the characters that are making the comedy fun are dying one by one, and
Yeah.
it's horribly tragic every time until the very last fun character, which is Gus, finally dies. And by the way, one thing the book is doing in the background is like for Newt, um, he doesn't know who his father is, so it's possible that all of these men are his father.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of the book, every man, and so in his mind, they're sort of all his father.
Yeah.
His father is the Hat Creek outfit, right? And over the course of the book, his his father dies one man at a time
Yeah.
until the only father he has left is Call, who can't bring himself to actually take ownership of him. So you're watching like this slow motion ripping away of any sense of belonging and home from this man who's been alienated, young man, really young man, who's been alienated from his homeland where he grew up, and he has no experience of anywhere other than Texas. And it's this really hard, like it's buried in amongst all the other stuff that's happening in this wonderful epic is this like coming of age story for Newt. And it's such a like nihilistic coming of age story, like that when they go to see the prostitutes, and they have all these
I loved
notions
it.
of what that's going to be like, and it's just awful.
Yeah.
uh and it's like just totally disappointing for everyone. And I loved all of it, right? Like the summary calls it, you know authentic, richly authentic. Like all of these little moments of disappointment and grotesquerie, and even good emotions in some places, they're also authentic, and that's really what makes this book special, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what John's saying. It's life. Like, it's things happen and then you die, and like,
Hmm.
and like, people want things, but they like, so many of the characters in this story actually have no idea what they want. Like, almost all of them. Almost like that's a theme, is like, what do you want? What do you want out of life? What do you want? What are you working towards right now? And for like Call and Gus, it's just like, I don't know. I just feel like I gotta get out of here and go do something. Like, the idea of being a rich rancher in Montana is like the motivating push, but that's not why Call is doing it. That's not why Gus is doing it. They just like, you know, they
Yeah,
it's something to do. And like
yeah,
all the cowboys and July just is constantly unsure of what he wants. Um, None of like Clara is, I think Clara is like the most head on her shoulders character in the entire book, the most like reasonable and rational character in the whole book, but even she's like completely torn on what she actually wants.
yeah. There's a lot of you could say gender stuff, but I think it transcends that to be just about humanity. But the recurring idea is you have these men who don't understand women, but they're desperately in love with these women,
Yeah.
and they pine for these women. They think about nothing except these women, and but they don't understand what the women want, or even really quite see the women as people. And
Yeah.
like Gus is maybe the only exception to this, but Gus is such a like wild card who just doesn't really have any self control. Um, that he's just totally unreliable, and no one ends up happy because everyone, to the extent that they want something that they can't have.
Yeah.
Um, and the whole situation with Gus and Clara is the perfect thing where it's just this like uh, uh, doomed romance, but I think in a really fresh way that I've never quite seen before, where I think I felt like I had a really good understanding of both Clara and Gus,
Yeah.
and you could just see like, oh, there's just no way they're actually ever gonna be able to bridge this gap, and it sucks because you wish they could figure it out, but it's like no, one of them would have to compromise on their nature, and that's like the cool thing about both of those characters is that they never will.
Yeah.
So it's never gonna happen.
Yeah, no, I love that. I completely agree. And like the character of Lorena is so fascinating in that regard too.
Mm.
You know, talking about a person who doesn't know what she wants, we're introduced to her saying she knows exactly what she wants, right? She wants San Francisco. That's what she wants. But like why does she
Mhm.
want San Francisco? And like I don't think she would even be able to answer that question. It's just like a thing. It's a goal. It's a destination. It's a point. It's something to strive for, um, and of course she doesn't get it because nobody gets what they want. But
Yeah.
her journey through this book is fucking rough, man. I guess
Yeah.
you could make the argument that she leaves the book like probably the best off. I guess like she's sad. She's very sad because Gus is dead, but um she's
Yeah.
found a place, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking if this book has protagonists, like it's tempting to say Call and Gus are the protagonists, and they probably are in some sense. But I think like Newt and Lorena also have a good shot for being protagonists because they're the closest ones to having kind of a standard arc,
Mm-hmm.
where they both sort of have a coming of age arc. Lorena ends up in a kind of home, not the kind of home maybe she would have imagined for herself at the start, but it's a much more healthy
Yeah.
home for her. And it's kind of less optimistic for Newt, but he does kind of end up in charge of the outfit. So um,
Yeah.
it's his is like the other way, where it's like, well, he maybe this is something he dreamed of, but what it took to get here, sort of, he lost everything, and he's become this like hard, bitter man now. So
Yeah.
um,
And I think the comparison to Blood Meridian, I want to kind of go back to that quickly because like I do think Blood Meridian is a much more cynical book than this book. I think
mhm.
Cormac McCarthy's view on humanity is that everything is evil and bad and there's no redeeming quality to anything is the vibe you get from Blood Meridian. I don't think that's true with this book. What I would say is in Blood Meridian everything is evil and bad. In Lonesome Dove there's a lot of good out there, but horrible things still happen.
Yeah.
Which is just accurate to life, certainly.
Yeah.
It's it's just like I mean, you start off the book being like, man, I don't think I'd want to be. I don't think I'd want to be a cattle driver. Like that's like the first couple hundred pages you say when they start the actual drive. You're like, man, this sucks. Like the description of it is like, this sucks. It's awful. And then it like goes from there to just like, oh no, it's like everything's awful. The thing that I couldn't get over, that I just couldn't get over, is when Jake Spoon is running with that gang, and they just come across this German family that's just like barely making it, right? They're just like they've built their house of sod, and they're trying to stake their claim in the land, and they're trying to build something for themselves, and they just walk in there and destroy it all for no reason. Like
Yeah.
like just the idea that this is a world in which like you're just walking along doing your thing, not like mind your own business, and then there's the two farmers later where they just shoot both of them immediately, right? And it's just like, and someone's just gonna walk up and shoot you and be like, sorry, later, and it's
Yeah.
just like, Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah.
And I know that like that happens in the real world all the time, right? But like it's such a focus of everything that happens here, and like
Right.
and the way Gus is ultimately killed in the end is just he went down a hill too fast. He bumped into
Yeah.
like the one group of Indians in the area that would fight someone, and they killed him.
Yeah. I mean, I think this book does have like a moral point to make too. I don't think it's just trying to sort of be like a prolonged slice of life, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Jake Spoon's character to me is the most really all of the like old Texas Rangers, I would say, that which I guess in that I mean there's a bunch of them, I guess. I guess I'll rephrase and just say like mainly Gus Call and Jake Spoon
Sure.
are sort of like different moral statements on like stances you can have toward life,
Mm-hmm.
and because they're all very radically different from each other. You could also throw Dietz and Pi in there too, but like those three guys are really the main ones I was thinking about. Where what makes them great characters is they feel real, but they're also like radically different from each other, and um, where like they all basically end up miserable or dead in 2 out of 3 cases. No,
Mm-hmm.
miserable and dead in 2 out of 3 cases. Um, and I mean, like, uh, the, but like the way they get there matters. So like Jake Spoon, what you were just talking about, where the fact that Jake Spoon has fallen in with these guys, I think is important. Where Jake Spoon's sort of um, specific character flaw is that he has, you know, unlike Call, he has let himself be led by things that he hasn't chosen, and he has been pulled in with a group of people who he doesn't like, and it's just like by sort of by increments he has compromised and compromised and compromised, and now he is an accessory to these horrible crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, when the outfit catches him and they're going to hang him, he's basically okay with it because he's like, yeah, I really let I at some point I lost control of my life,
Yeah.
and now I'm here, and there's a poetic justice to the fact that my old buddies are gonna put me down because this is almost the best way this can end at this point. Which is an incredibly poignant, powerful scene when that happens. And again, I felt like felt like the book was kind of asking us to investigate, you know, asking us to think about this and what we were doing with this character in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, like it's so funny because Jake is introduced in the novel through the perspective of Newt, who like so looks up to him, like thinks this guy is like walking on water, and then we see him through that perspective, and then we get to see him through Lorena's perspective, who also like immediately falls in love with him, and then over times we just realize that he's not that at all. He's this useless kind of child that is just floating and ping-ponging from one part of life to the next, and he just runs away and goes somewhere else every time he gets bored or gets in a bad situation, or and eventually, yeah, like that he gets in the mixed in with the wrong crowd and suffers for it. And that sequence was so incredibly sad because like you totally understand why they're doing it, why they feel like they're going to hang him with the rest of them. He understands it too, and everyone's just like sad about it, but there's nothing else they can do. I do want to say, like, the moral lines that these characters draw are actually really funny, because the one thing they say is like, you know, like horse theft, like you steal a horse, that's a hanging offense. And that's just the way it is, and we got to do that. And then like the inciting incident of the book is them them galloping over into Mexico to steal a bunch of horses and cattle.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just like we have this very strict moral code, but also like, and if they were caught and then hung for it, they'd be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But it's like the moral code is like, are the consequences of my actions fair? It's not, will it stop me from doing the actions or not?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that kind of endears us to Gus a bit, is that Gus
Yeah.
is like, you know, there's that like us being Texas Rangers and killing the Indians for decades, we were probably the bad guys there.
Mm-hmm.
And Call is like, I got no time for your nonsense, Gus. and and Gus, like, Call just sees things in this very like um black and white and also sort of provincial way, where it's like for Call, I never quite articulated this yet, so I'm gonna try to work my way through it. But it's like Call sees himself as having certain duties that he doesn't necessarily choose; they're sort of chosen for him, and then he just endlessly is obligated to those duties. And if he lets himself down, then he literally never forgives himself. Like, he has no mechanism for recovering if he has made a mistake. So like, he sullies himself by going to the prostitute like twice, and then which results in the birth of Newt, and he basically never forgives himself for this.
Yeah.
Um, and he's just like he's driven mainly by guilt and like an obsessive need to live up to some ideal version of himself that he has in his own mind already failed at.
Yeah.
It's a really but it's funny because I think we all maybe see a little bit of ourselves in all of these characters. That's what makes great literature. And like, I was made very uncomfortable by the parts of myself that I saw in Call, because it's just like, why are you doing this to yourself?
Yeah.
Like that, you're your own worst enemy, just like everybody else in the book.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you want to take those three characters, like, you can say Jake Spoon sits on one side of things, Call sits on the other, and I think the thing that is so likable about Gus is that he kind of floats in the middle of those two extremes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Call is this man that is duty bound for everything. Jake Spoon is this man who apparently seems to have no duty to anything, no obligation, no nothing. And then Gus is, yeah, he's hanging out in the middle of that, right? Like he understands duty, but he also has a much more like loose depiction of what he is required to do, what he should do, and that makes him likable. And that, like, I love, like, it's one of my favorite characters ever. Like, I love him so much. Like, I didn't care for the name Gus. I didn't care for the name Augustus. But like, this is one of those things where I feel like if I read this book when I was a teenager, I would have named my son Augustus, because I just
Right.
that's how much I love this character,
Yeah.
and how much he imprinted on me.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I had the same feelings. Even the parts of him that are negative are human, and you see yourself in them, even if you're like, that wasn't good.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, because he's kind of a hypocrite, but it's like, I think that's
But he would be the
maybe
first to
one of
tell you that he's a hypocrite.
yeah, right, and maybe he would even go further and say like, how do you not be a hypocrite?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone's a hypocrite. Call's a hypocrite. It's just Gus admits he's a hypocrite, and he kind of owns it, and he kind of does his best. I mean, like the book is very. This isn't one of the things that's like pure comedy, but it's kind of funny that Gus is like this shiftless, lazy guy who just like always would rather just talk than work.
Yeah.
So I really relate to that, obviously.
Oh yeah. The trick is to make talking working.
Exactly.
See, that's
But then he's also the guy who tracks an evil murderer for several days, and then ambushes his camp, single-handedly killing like 6 Indians, and then rescues the damsel, and then very tenderly cares for her for what, months? I don't remember exactly.
yeah.
And like very selflessly and patiently cares for her over a long period of time. So yeah, it's just really dynamic and interesting character there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the end of Gus choosing to die rather than live without legs is like one of the greatest ironies in literature, because he is a character who would rather sit around and drink all day than do anything. And yet the prospect of not being able to walk is untenable for him. He can't imagine that life, and chooses to die instead of have that life. And it's because it's like, it's not like Gus he's not allergic to work. He's not lazy because he doesn't want to work. He's lazy because he doesn't see a point in it
Yeah.
until you give him a very specific point.
Yeah.
And then he'll work harder than anyone else. Like, yeah, he's the only one. Like, I believe maybe Call would have as well, but like the only one of any of the other characters that would have spent that long tracking down Lorena and saving her. And God, I love him. Like that's so great that the end is like we start this book with this man sitting in a chair saying he's been sitting in the chair all day, not done anything, not done shit, not talked to people, and then his last moments is, no, don't take that leg. I'll kill you if you take that leg.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine not being able to walk. And it's like, well, it's like Call even calls him on that, right? And he's like, well, I walked to the shed to get my whiskey. And it's like, yeah.
Well, I think, it's like Gus just loves life, and he has a certain image of himself.
Yeah.
And if he can't be that anymore, he lives life on his own terms. That's what's so romantic about him, and the idea that even the idea that he dies the way he dies is romantic in its way. It's like it's funny. This book really messed with me, right? Because it's like simultaneously it is a grand sweeping romantic adventure. Like I contradict what I said at the start of the episode, I realize, but like Gus makes it this grand sweeping romantic adventure because he lives his life as a romantic.
Yeah.
And he refuses to compromise on that, right? Like he refuses to become a cynical and embittered old man with no legs because he knows that's what would happen to him. He's just like, no, I'm just gonna die. I was an awesome badass.
Yeah.
And now I can't be that anymore, so I'm gonna die.
Well, and he wanted to go to Montana. Like he would never admit that. Like he feels like he's being driven by other people, but like, Gus, if he didn't want to go, he wouldn't go. And that's like right before we get his turn where he comes across the group of Indians and dies. The thing he says is like, I love it out here. This place is incredible. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And I think that goes to something that John said earlier. Like, this is a book that like sees the beauty in the world. It like there is beauty out there. There is happiness. There is purpose. But there's also all this other stuff. But like the problem is you could be galloping along these beautiful plains, take a hill too fast, and then suddenly you're surrounded by people that are going to kill you. And like it is both. And yeah, I mean, Gus, I love what you said about Gus. Yeah.
No. I think the movie. I think the book knows what it's doing with tropes too, because it gives you this sense over the course of the book that Gus is basically like John McClane. Like it's like you're never gonna put this guy down. You're not even really gonna hurt this guy. Like he is a superhero. He's preternaturally good with a gun. And everything he does it effortlessly. He's just like your perfect Texas Ranger superhero. And he can't possibly die due to violence. And then he dies due to violence in a way that feels very like, oh, that could have happened to anyone.
Man, he is walking back to the town, and I'm like, still in my head, I'm like, no, this dude's gonna make it. He's gonna make it. Yeah. Of course he is.
Yeah. Right,
like,
Gus.
Just like I never fully accepted that he was gonna die. Like, there's part of me that like was like, as soon as PI left him, I was like, oh, he's gonna die. But then there's part of me was like, well, no. I'm like, I didn't know how he was gonna get out of the situation he was in, but I was like, nah, man, this guy's good. He's got it. John points out that the characters are named July and August, and despite reading 900 pages, that is just occurring to me. That two of the characters of this book are named July and August. Yeah.
I might have like is there somebody named June? Is there a June?
I don't think so.
Maybe I'm thinking of Janie, which is not the same thing.
No.
Anyway.
There's Jake Spoon, which rhymes with June.
I don't know. Yeah, so I love so many of the characters. We literally don't have time to go through and talk about like Dietz is this incredibly compelling, lovable character. Once again, dies pointlessly in a way that you're just like, nobody's ever going to get the drop on Dietz. He's Dietz.
Yeah.
He's while Gus is sort of a supernatural gunfighter. Dietz is like supernaturally situationally aware and a tracker. And the reason he dies is he's just like this nice, open-hearted, kind man who's kind of like somehow managed to shrug off a lifetime of racism, and and now he's dead for no reason.
Yeah, he's just trying to help this little boy, and he
Yeah.
scared the people, and they threw a spear at him. It sucks. I agree with you. Like, like you look at a book like this, and it's a 900-page book, and you're like, did this book need to be this long? I say that with every really long book I read, and the ones that I love, the answer is always, of course it did. And part of the reason with this book is because the book spends so much time fleshing out each one of these minor characters. They feel like real people. You get to see them change, even if they're not like growing. You see them change over time. Even like both of our cooks, like the first cook we start with, and then Po Campo, like we get to learn a bunch about them, and they all feel real and full, and that's, I think, even more tragic when it's like he spends the time to build these people up, and then they just die, and you're like, wait a minute, that's not how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
It.
Yeah. I felt I definitely that's maybe why I like when I started in talking about this book at the start of this conversation, I was maybe sounded negative because that was me sort of venting off like all the accrued like resentment at the author for having made me fall in love with these characters and then killing them in a way that really felt pointless, and obviously, like, I'm not holding that against the book. I actually think it's a genius book because it's able to do that. And it, like everyone has said in this conversation in the chat, it's like, well, that's life. People die pointlessly. In fact, that's usually the way people die, is pointlessly. But it made me, I don't know, like the book is kind of an anti-narrative in some ways. I mean, in some ways it's a narrative, but in some ways it's pulling you to be on its wavelength. Like, I think you and I had a very similar experience actually reading the book, where I did the audiobook, you did the paperback, but we both had a similar experience in the sense that my experience was like the first month of the first month that we had to read this, I basically very slowly made my way through the first half of the book, roughly, very slowly, in little pieces, because I just was not grabbed by it. I was like, what? Like, where are we going? What is the story of this book? Like, I'm enjoying the characters. I'm enjoying like the moments, but nothing has really hooked me, and nothing is like compelling me to read it. And I was like, at that point, if you'd asked me, I would have been like, yeah, we're gonna have a good conversation about this. I'm probably gonna talk a lot about how well written it is and how the characters are really cool, but I just don't get what we're doing yet. And then, like, again, halfway point, I ripped through it in like 3 days, which is easy to do in your audiobook reading, because it all kind of clicked together for me. And I don't even think it's necessarily like, oh, that's when it decided to become a narrative. It's just maybe that's part of it, but I personally felt like it was more like I came into the wavelength that the book wanted me to be on finally, and I understood what it was doing.
I think you're absolutely right there. Yeah, my experience was even worse than yours, because I think I entered the second month of this 2-month journey with this book on page 50. And then I read basically the entire book in May. And then, the last half I read essentially over the course of like 3 or 4 days. So it's like the book takes its time getting everything rolling. It's setting it like it is. I think the best way I can describe this is that, like, every time I opened the book, the act of reading it was enjoyable, but there was nothing that like made me say, okay, today, instead of watching a television show, I'm going to read Lonesome Dove, because I really just want to find out what happens next. Like, I didn't get there until much further in the book. It took me a long time to get there, but every time I opened it up, regardless, it was like, even those first 50 pages that took a month, I was enjoying. Like, I never disliked those pages. Like, every time I had the book in my hands, I was like, yeah, this is a great book. It's just when looking at my list of things to do for the day, it kept falling further and further down until I was like, okay, we've got 3 weeks left. I really need to get a gear with this thing. Which is
What's funny
interesting.
is I can't remember like what it was that made me switch over. You know, I don't.
Yeah, I heard people have the sentiment. I think I heard it from you. I heard it from Aqua in chat, and Karen is saying a similar thing, that like everyone is like, yeah, the second half took me, like, I read like 3 times, 4 times, 5 times faster than the first half, and like so I was kind of waiting for like a thing that was going to happen in the book, like a clearly measurable thing, and that never really happened. It's just suddenly I noticed that I was going back to the book more and more often. I was like, if I was in the bathroom at work, I was opening up my phone and reading the book on my phone. By the way, I have the paperback version, and I bought a Kindle version, literally just so I didn't have to be judged for carrying a thick book like this from my cube to the bathroom at work. I just feel like people would judge me for that.
Very wise. Yeah, that's funny. John says something that I didn't know. Part of the reason it seems like an anti-narrative is it's loosely based on a real story.
Oh,
Gus and Call are based on Charles Goodnight and Oliver Loving.
Interesting.
Fascinating. I wonder how loosely. That's really cool though. I didn't know that at all. I honestly didn't see that anywhere in my reading about the book either. So thanks for telling us.
Yeah, Goodnight really carried Loving's body all the way from Montana to Texas.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
I actually I love that. So we talked about Clara a little bit, and I do love the scene where Call comes to Clara with the news of Gus, which she already knew, but also like stopping it to hand off the letters and stopping in on the way down to Texas, and she's like beside herself, like it is absurd. What you're doing is absurd. Like, why are you doing this? It doesn't make any sense. He's dead. Just bury him out here and go return to your son. And there's a part of you that's like, yeah, that's the rational thing to do right now. Is that and maybe even the moral thing to do. Like, you have a responsibility to your son, who's out there. He's still very young. You've put him in charge of this whole operation. He's a very competent kid, but maybe not ready for that level of responsibility. And also, you owe him a lifetime of, you know, being his father and making that declaration formally. And you're just like, yeah, Call, come the fuck on, man. Like, especially after the horrible awkwardness that was that the giving of the horse moment, and poor Newt just fucking say it, man. Just fucking say it. And of course, Call can't say it. And so, like, you're totally on Clara's side with this. You're like, yes, 100%. Yes. And then there's a part of you that's like, but these dudes were like best friends.
Yeah.
And like, if my best friend on his deathbed asked me to do something, I'm going to fucking do it. I am.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to do it. Like, no matter how hard it is, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, right. I think that it's totally in keeping with Call's character, where he has these like duties that he perceives that he has, and also just to him, the idea of dragging his friend's body to Texas is just like not. There's nothing that's too much for Call, right? It's just like if it needs to be done, it needs to be done. So we're gonna do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's gonna take you months. So what? Everything in life takes time, and I need to do this, right?
Yeah, I'll be back next year, maybe.
Yeah,
probably.
The way.
Can I just say, there was a part of me reading this whole book. They're like, we're gonna take all these cows to Montana, and we're gonna be the first people in Montana, and we're gonna be rich. And there's a part of me that was like, who are you going to sell them to? And of course, we do see they sell quite a few of them to the military, right? That is kind of their play. But I just like, that was just in the back of my head. I was like, did anyone think about someone has to be there to buy cow?
Yeah.
With money, like, where's the money gonna come from?
I know it is funny because you think especially toward the beginning of the book, you think of Call as like a very practical and pragmatic man, but I think the truth is he's not actually.
Mm-hmm.
He is actually in many ways even more of a romantic than Gus, because he latches on to these like ideals, and for him, like it's actually the romantic ideal of like, yes, the first cattle rancher in Montana, and
Mm-hmm.
like once that seed is planted in his head, he's like, that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're not even going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And and that dictates his behavior for the whole rest of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because he doesn't see himself that way, right? But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
if we realize that none of these characters actually see themselves accurately.
There was no railroad in Montana, was there? Was
I
there
don't know.
at this time? I mean, of course, there eventually was, but
I have no idea.
like, I mean,
don't,
the real answer is like, yes, like they were getting there first, staking their claim on the land, and then as it continued to be more and more settled, like they would have the land, they would have the cattle, living and breeding and growing on the land, and they would have control of the whole market. Like it's a long term play. But
yeah,
I understand that. But yeah, in the back of my mind, I was like, all right, we're here in Montana.
yeah,
Time to be rich. And I'm just like,
right.
there's nobody here but you.
Yeah, I mean, my expectation, like you said, like from the beginning of the book, I was like, like, is this gonna be one of those stories where just the cattle all die gradually as they go north, and
I
they
was
get
surprised
there
by
and
how
there are no
little
cattle
they
left?
lost. Yeah, I was surprised
Yeah,
by how little they lost.
yeah. I think in the end, I was both right and wrong, because I was like, oh, they didn't lose that many cattle. They succeeded in their mission, but they lost everyone. It's like Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah,
It's like, well, good job, I guess.
it
You
is
got there.
it is really fun knowing a little bit about American geography when they're like in Nebraska and they're like, all right, we're just gonna head up to Montana, and I'm just thinking in the back of my head, between between Nebraska and Montana, there's a lot of absolutely nothing.
Uh,
This is gonna be interesting.
I don't think I'm going to become a cowboy.
No, I don't think I am either.
People in the chat, I think John mentioned that McMurtry wrote the sequels, and actually, I'm a little confused about this. Let's figure this out right now. Did he write these books in order, or did he write this book and then he wrote like two prequels and then one sequel? Yes, I'm correct.
Yeah.
So he wrote this book in '85, published it in '85, I should say, and then he published Streets of Laredo in '93, which is the sequel,
Mm-hmm.
and then he published two prequels, Dead Man's Walk in '95 and Comanche Moon in '97, and those are the prequels, presumably more about like when they were Texas Rangers, I guess.
Sure.
Um, and apparently, part of his reaction, where I said earlier that he thought that no one understood what he was going for with this book, he proceeded to make the prequels and sequel extremely bleak and grimdark.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, like, despite the fact that, like, we just agreed that this is an incredibly well written book with amazing characters and it's just a fantastic book, I have just no desire to read, more of this, except even darker.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, I don't think I don't know if I even said this to you, but like when I finished this book, I actually like had trouble like falling asleep because I was just so sad about the characters. I just kept thinking about all the characters, and because they had been made so real to me, it was like thinking about some terrible tragic things that happened to people you care about.
Yeah.
I was like lying in bed being sad, thinking sadly about the sad things that happened to these characters,
Yeah.
and I couldn't fall asleep. And I don't know if that has, I don't want to say it's never happened. I've had some books hit me really hard before, but that's a very rare experience.
Yeah, I don't think if I felt it quite as acutely as that, but I think I'm with you on that like these characters felt very real to me. This book felt very real to me. It was very emotionally impactful reading the book and getting to the end. And I do think it's such a weird thing, this relationship to this book he had, and the reaction to this book, because like as we've said, this is a very dreary book. This is a very sad book. A lot of horrible things happen, but that's not all it is, right? It is a book of love and happiness and triumph and all these things. It shows the gamut. So the idea that people liked the book annoying him is like, I don't like, authors are weird. I think
Yeah.
is yeah.
The sign of a true genius is a little bit of insanity. So
Yeah.
um,
And yeah, like, I love the idea that he thought his book was bad, because that is just such a creator thing, that like everything I do is shit and terrible, and why are you liking this so much? It's nonsense. But like, he still, like, it's so, because he went, like, this is a big book, this took a long time to write, like, this was, he invested a lot of time in this, and it, like, I don't know, I am not a creator like this, but there's part, like, if I wrote this book and then it won the Pulitzer, I feel like my reaction would be like, fuck yeah. I did it. It would not be like, you idiots, nobody understands this, I'm gonna fucking kill the boy, fuck you.
I don't know. I'm not even gonna try to understand. I think this is like a perfect use case for death of the author, where I'm just like, this is the guy was channeling something. Not to say that he, he's not responsible for the book he wrote, but it's sometimes I think the book is bigger than the person who writes it, and they don't really understand everything they're doing. I mean, I'm sort of channeling Stephen King here, where he often talks about how it's like, look, the book isn't. It's not like you sit there and you decide in sequence deliberatively what word to write down next, and then you do that again, and then you do that again, word by word, and the book is written. It's like parts of it are just your whole life has led to this moment, and this is the book that you put together. And I feel like that's what happened here.
And I just, like, not only do I not want to return to a darker version of this world, but like, I just feel like this book is a perfect capsule of a thing in and of itself, and I don't even need more from that world. Like I understand the impetus and the desire for someone to, like, I like these characters and I want to see more of these characters, but like, even if I knew that the next book was all about how Newt has a wonderful, successful life and is happy as a rich Montana rancher, like, I don't need that. Like, I feel like I got everything I wanted here, and I'm fine having that and then walking away from it. So
there's something intrinsically serious about the idea of a Pulitzer Prize winning book having prequels. It's like, just leave it, man.
Just leave it.
You're done.
Do we know if the other three are as fucking massive as this one? I bet they are. Just really had to stick it to poor Newt.
But folks in the chat are pointing out that he wrote them very, very quickly relative to this book.
So people were a little bit before we're talking about the miniseries, which I really wanted to watch some of before tonight, but I just didn't have enough time in my week to get it in. But I feel like I'm going to go back and watch that, because as people are talking about, this was like a hugely successful and hugely important miniseries event. Like, a lot of people watch this thing, and it's very well regarded. And yeah, you look at the cast list and you're like, holy shit, they got some really, really tour de force actors here. Tommy Lee Jones, Robert Duvall, Jesus.
Yeah, those are just like the perfect two actors in all of film history to be those two characters.
True. Also, John said that Tommy Lee Jones was 43 when he played Call, which is upsetting because that's way too close to my age, and I do not like that.
Right. I had to look up. I looked up how old the characters are actually supposed to be in the book, and I think they're in their 50s in the book.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think people just aged a lot faster in those days. So I was like stealing my body to learn that, like, Call is supposed to be a grizzled 45, but no, I think he was more like 55 actually.
Is like Gus is like the, like, 'cause I feel like now all of like the movie stars that are in action films are in their 50s and 60s, but like I feel like in the 80s, being in your mid to late 50s and being like a badass was not as normal of a thing. So it's like it's really a statement that Gus is this total badass.
Yeah, I think so. That's my sense as well.
Aren't like all the
Um,
Chris's in their 50s or something? That upsets me. Maybe not
I know,
Evans.
I know, I don't like it. Um, Tommy Lee Jones has looked 55 since he was 30 or so. Yeah, that's true, John.
Yeah, true.
Um, Aqua Lungfish says the other books seem to be shorter, like 500, 500, 750 page counts.
I mean, that's not that
So,
shorter. 750 is still a pretty beefy book.
yeah. But I mean, 500 is that's like almost half of this length.
Yeah,
Right?
it's just like a book. It's funny, by the way, because I was considering putting Wild Bill's Claw in the vote for book club this month, because we're
Yeah.
gonna do that eventually, and
Right.
I was like, how long is it again? And I looked up the word count. It's like exactly the same length as as Lonesome Dove, and I was like, okay, maybe
Yeah.
we'll hold off on that for the time
Yeah.
being.
A or a or a Wild Bow novella.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like this is one of those things that's like, it's so big that talking about individual scenes and moments is tough. But man, I just like I love this. I love this book. I truly love this book.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my way of structuring this book is more in terms of characters. And we hit upon most of them. I don't know. We can talk a little bit more about Clara, I guess, because I thought it was really interesting how I think maybe one of the reasons why I kind of accelerated in my reading pace was because Clara is more um, relatable in many ways
Yeah.
and like more self-aware, and it's a bit of a break. It's kind of a change of pace from like, okay, we're either following these cattlemen who are all kind of extreme in various ways, or like we're just watching like horrible acts of ultraviolence happening to people.
Mm-hmm.
And then Clara is this breath of fresh air where it's like, okay, she's basically just like a normal woman. She's dealt with some horrible tragedy in her life, but she has soldiered through it, and it has left its marks on her, but she's a tough woman, and just like very quickly fell in love with her. It's funny, like the first like 5 seconds, I was like, "What is like? Are we doing? We're doing a new character at this point in the story?" And then within, like I said, like 3 sentences, I was bought in with this new character, and actually, she became one of my favorite characters.
When you first learned that Bob was brain dead, did you do a little happy dance? Because you're like, ooh, that means she could be with Gus. And then I was like, wait, that's fucked up, Scott. Why did you think
Yeah,
that?
yeah, of course I did, and I don't remember at what point if it was before or after this that I clued in, where I was like, yeah, but like that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's because but the very fact that you had that thought means that it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'm glad you brought her up again, because I really do feel like, as much as I loved Gus and Call, and I loved all the cattle driving moments and scenes, like I do feel like the book shifted a gear when I think it's part 3 that we are first introduced to her, right? I mean, actually with
yeah,
her, know her from the very beginning of the book, but yeah,
right.
we actually are with her and get to experience everything with her. And yeah, I mean, like those, it felt like those chapters were some of the fastest I read, because I was just very into her perspective. I was very into her, and like Elmira shows up and leaves the baby, and there's a part of you that's like, that's awful. But then there's
Mhm.
another part of you that's like, oh, free baby.
Yeah,
For
this is better for the kid.
yeah,
Yeah.
and for Clara, yeah. And then I swear to God, Matt, if McMurtry had killed the baby,
Mhm.
I we'd be having an entirely different conversation right now.
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty important that despite me complaining relentlessly for the last hour about all of the terrible stuff that happened and how bleak it was, like we end up with Lorena living with Clara, having some measure of peace, the baby having, his horrible mom abandons him and goes off and dies off screen with poor the poor buffalo hunter.
Mm-hmm.
But the baby's okay, Claire's okay, Claire's daughters are okay. July is gonna stay with them, I guess.
Fucking
Right?
July, man, one of the most hapless. Like
Yeah.
the proposal to Clara scene,
Uh-huh.
and then her like I just like fist pumping for. She's like, you say you want to marry me, and then you didn't even stay up with me with the baby. Like you didn't even offer to help. You didn't do anything. You're just like this completely passive, like useless. And yet I like him, right? I like him.
Well, he's yeah. July's an interesting character. I agree. He's like he really just wants to do the right thing,
But he has
but
no
he's
idea what
kind
the
of
right thing is. He has
he has
no
no
idea.
idea. He has no idea how to actually be helpful. He tries things. He doesn't. I think. I think he's just can't read people at all.
Yeah.
Like he has no theory of mind, and he can't put. I mean, I was thinking at various times. I was like, are we meant to think July is dumb? Because I think we're meant to think Roscoe is dumb. Like
Yeah.
he's literally just dumb. July, I think he's dumb when it comes to people, but he can be kind of competent at other things.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just so dumb when it comes to people. And I don't remember exactly where we leave off with him. I mean, he stays with Clara, right? That's all
Yeah.
I
I mean,
remember.
I think he feels like he's gonna stay with Clara, but I like, yeah.
Yeah.
He. Do you think she's not gonna marry him ever? Is she?
I don't know. I felt like so this is my thought on that is I was like, so this book has basically trained me not to be too much of a romantic and to just have the attitude of like you take what you can get from life
Yeah.
and you know he is in love with her even though he doesn't know how to make her happy, and I don't think she has like a ton of prospects, so I can see her being like, all right, fine,
Well, and like
you know.
July is going to let her do what she wants to do, right? Like
Mhm.
she's not going to be with a man that would like tell her what she can and can't do. Like she wants to be. He sucks with horses, but that's okay because she's really good with the horses, and she's gonna want to do the horse stuff. That's what she's gonna want to do. Um, John, he's also 24, and some guys don't stop. Some guys take to 39, just for example.
Yeah.
I don't think she's gonna like marry him in the traditional sense. I think he's gonna stick around, and they're gonna have a weird little family of their own.
Yeah, I mean, that, again, sorry to finish my rambling thought. Like, it did leave us with this group of characters who we like all of them. We think they all deserve happiness. They all get a kind of happiness, maybe not the kind of happiness they wanted. None of them are quite living the life that they imagined for themselves, but they all have some measure of belonging and some measure of happiness, and maybe that's all we can hope for in this life, and that feels very
Yeah,
true to me.
especially for a character like July, who like I love. McMurtry does this thing very successfully in this book. We haven't talked about like the actual like writing very much to this episode, but McMurtry does a thing in this book where he's very good at constructing these scenes filled with dramatic irony, where we, the relatively intelligent reader, understand what's going on much quicker than the characters do, or even like the characters never do. And he does this again and again and again, right? We're having characters who don't understand things or are having trouble processing things where it's just like, oh, I get it. And like one of the things with July that is so heartbreaking is like you realize just immediately that this woman is just entirely uninterested in him, and I'm talking about his first wife. And then
Right.
it's like the book is hundreds of pages of July chasing after her, and you're just like, man, she's not that into you. And it's just like,
Yeah.
and it's just like, it's so sad. It's so sad that like he goes through all these ordeals. He like sees people die, and then he's like, oh man, now I got to tell her son's dead. Hey buddy, she don't give a shit. She's not going to
Yeah.
care about that. And so like, even if we leave him as this kind of hapless guy who's in love with another woman who doesn't love him back, like at least in this situation, you have a level of comfort that Clara is not going to manipulate or abuse him in the way that Elmira did.
Yeah.
And so you're like, you can leave him contentedly.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Elmira is an interesting character we haven't talked about
Yes, she is.
much. So I thought what was interesting to me is like I think this is just some of the extreme deftness of McMurtry was like, if he had just made a few different writing choices, then you would, I think, just hate her purely and just think like she's just the worst. She's basically a villain, and just hate her. But like that's not how I left off feeling about her. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like she was just an example of a character of this theme throughout the whole book of like people who are their own worst enemies, where there was no way for her to be happy.
Yeah.
The thing that she wanted was impossible and probably a fantasy in the first place. She was desperately unhappy and alienated from everything around her, and just her life had not gone the way she wanted. And like, yeah, did she are her actions terrible? Yes, uniformly, without exception. But you just feel bad for her. You
Yeah.
just feel like she's just a tragic character, just like everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. She's like kind of doomed to the exact fate that she has.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a way that I agree, it does make you sad for her. She like just kind of jumped from thing to thing, and like I think we haven't talked about like the frame of so much of that the story operates in is like the rules and societal expectations of late 1800s America, right? Where like there's there's expectations for people, and there's expectations for how you behave and what you do, and how you could contort yourself in society, um, and those expectations shift based on how far out into the wilderness you are. But we have a lot of characters that come from uh, much more settled areas, and that drives so much of people's actions
Yeah.
into a way where like she marries July because she gets spooked and scared,
Mm-hmm.
and she wants the protection and the reassurance of marriage, in a society where you're expected to be married, and but then it is immediately like I don't want this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want any of this, and like that's a relatable feeling, I think.
Yeah. I mean, her reaction to it is extremely annoying, but it's a relatable feeling for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, I think what you said is great. Like her
Yeah.
actions themselves are uniformly terrible, but I think we understand them.
So I think I was confused on a certain point. Maybe you can clear this up for me. Are we meant to think that the baby Martin is indeed July's son, or
Um
was she pregnant when she got married with him? Because I at first I was convinced that it wasn't actually July's son and that she had married July to cover for that. But then the more the book went on and kind of dripped information to us, I changed my mind and was like, no, there's no real reason to believe that. It's probably just she married July and then immediately got pregnant, and
I
which again just made her feel even more trapped.
yeah, I think it's his kid. I I
Yeah.
I never felt, I understand why you got that feeling, but I never felt that the book was trying to push us into anything other than that it being his kid.
Yeah. I think
Seems
I was
like
just
everyone
pattern
agrees.
matching. Yeah, it seems like everyone in the chat agrees. I think I was just pattern matching to her being the kind of person who would do that sort of thing.
Sure, I guess the only push against would have is like, I don't know, was Joe a kid in or out of wedlock? I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
It just seems like that part of societal expectations doesn't seem like it would. 'Cause she was, I mean, she was a prostitute,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I
So
think she was like lying about that fact, but yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure you're right, and I think I came around to that point. I just was not sure of it. Um,
hmm There's a lot of men behaving like fucking idiots because of women in this book. Like a
oh
lot of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like that's the last beat of this book is learning that the saloon in Lonesome Dove was burned down because the guy was so distraught about Lorena not marrying
yeah,
him. It's like a
right.
lot of men being fucking morons because
Well,
of women.
exactly. Well, so and particularly Lorena, that's the greatest irony I love about the whole thing is
Yeah.
like every man in the book is in love with Lorena, except Gus, who's desperately in love with Clara.
hmm
And then after Gus saves Lorena, she only has eyes for Gus.
Yeah.
who doesn't love her back, and it just drives everyone crazy. So you're like, why not me? And, yeah,
We haven't talked about Dish. That's true. Good old Dish, who's
Dish Boget.
definitely in love with Lorena.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um, definitely understands what love is, right, Dish? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so
I think Dish and Newt are also two like interesting characters where it's like two different sort of approaches to being a young man,
yeah.
whereas a lot of the older characters are like different takes on being an old man.
Mm-hmm. I liked
Um,
Dish a lot, but I the continued beat of like he's incredibly in love with this woman that he doesn't know at all, doesn't understand at all, um, was pretty great.
yeah. Right.
What is
Yeah.
he?
I find.
Is the implication that Dish is going to hang out at Clara's ranch and then eventually marry one of her daughters? I feel like that's where
Probably.
we leave his story, which
I thought so. I had the same thought as you.
good for you, Dish. You know, did you pronounce it Boget? How is it
Boget.
pronounced?
Yeah. Boget. Dish
Because
Boget.
in
Yeah.
my head, I just read Boggett every time. I was like, oh, good old Dish Boggett.
I love the nicknames Pi and
Yeah. Well,
Eats
and
and
Dish is,
Dish.
I'm trying to remember dishes because he drank dishwater. Why? Because he
Yeah.
was so thirsty, he drank
He
dishwater.
exactly. Yeah.
And they just called him Dish
The
forever.
the okay, so I just thinking of Deets and like the names. I love one of the immediate things that made me love the book, even though I wasn't like, you know, it still wasn't a page turner, was the saga of the Hat Creek company sign.
Oh my
Um,
god.
and Gus adding more and more to it, and like this whole idea of Gus thinking of himself as this, educated man, and then using a Greek or Latin, I forget,
It's
yeah,
Latin.
Latin phrase that he doesn't even know the meaning of, and like adding more names to the sign, and then like trying to figure out what Dietz's name is, and it's just God, it was like this little short story vignette within the book about the sign. I love it so much.
I loved it so much. And then yeah, the we don't rent pigs, and then the reaction people have to we don't rent pigs was perfect. It actually broke my heart a little, like when we were told bring the sign and use the sign for my gravestone. I was like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
great. And then the sign is destroyed. It makes me
yeah,
I was a little sad.
yeah.
A little
Yeah,
destroyed.
I agree. That was one of the like closing notes of the book where you're like, ah,
Doesn't even get
God,
his funny sign. Yeah.
yeah. This everything is just gone. Everything is ground away to nothing. Ugh. Um, I, the sign. I looked up what the sign means. By the way,
I
I'm
looked
gonna
this
try
up
to
too.
find
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
I've
it's
forgotten.
I have also forgotten. Um, yeah, this is.
It's great audio right here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Lonesome Dove sign Latin.
yeah. Oh, you can buy them on Etsy.
A
That's
grape changes its hue by living next to another grape.
yeah.
So
Um,
basically, people are influenced by the people they spend time
spend
with.
time with. Yeah, which I love because it's accurate to the Hat Creek company, even
Yeah,
though
yeah.
Gus didn't know what it meant. Um, now I want to get this sign from Etsy, man.
What are you gonna do with it?
I'm gonna put it right here.
Do it. You should also
Uh,
tattoo it on you.
we don't rent pigs.
The whole sign tattoo, like all down
Yeah,
your chest.
or at least just ova ovam vivendo varia feet, uh, on my arm with like a, swords crossed or something, just to give a completely confusing impression.
Isn't Call kind of an example of how that's not true? Or could we say that Call's hard like is actually a result of the company he surrounded himself with? Because you feel like Gus would have a little bit more of a influence on him.
I feel like he did have an influence on him, but not necessarily in a straightforward way. It's like they sort of polarized each other.
Oh yeah, that's
Um,
fair. That's fair. Like instead of Because yeah, I mean the sign says the grape changes its hue. Like it doesn't say the grapes become more like each other. They change to each other's hue. It's just like I like that. They're two opposite sided magnets. Like the closer they are together, the more they're pushing to the poles. Yeah, I like that.
The more they're pushed against each other, the more Call like Call has to become, and the more Gus like Gus has to become.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that.
Because like, to me, you and I are always talking about male friendships in fiction, and I love this one where it's like they can often it's like they can barely stand each other, but there's clearly just like they love each other, right? It's they're brothers, right?
Yeah.
It's a really it's really touching, and neither of them are ever gonna like say anything like that, but just you can tell by the way they act, and Call being willing to bring his body back and everything. So
yeah, I mean it's so funny because Call frames the journey back to Texas as just another of his duties that he has to do, and that's all it is. But like in reality, it's just because this is your brother, like this, your best friend, your brother, your partner, like he's doing it for Gus, and Gus, man, I love Gus. It's like, why would you make me do that? It's like, honestly, just to see if you do, but you won't. But you won't see if I do it. It's like,
yeah. Just because I know I can keep messing with you, and that's where I get most of my pleasure in life.
Oh man, good old Gus.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, it's kind of perfect that he tries to get out of it, but he does it anyway, even though no one's making him. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna bring us around to the runway.
Yeah. Do it.
Anything else you wanted to talk about here? I mean, like, it feels like we scratched the surface, but we've been going for almost an hour and a half. So, incredible book. We usually ask the question, like, would you want to read more by this author? And I think we've kind of determined throughout the course of this conversation that the answer is no, specifically because we know where this goes and don't particularly want to go there. I like Newt being the best ranch hand in Montana ever. And actually, the television show Yellowstone they're all descendants of Newt.
Yeah, there you go. I'm mildly curious about terms of endearment because I know I've always heard about that.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Really
that's a good point. Like not going to read any more in this series, but read more of this author in general.
Yeah. So, maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree, John. I don't want any more. And yeah, I'm so glad we read this book. This is one I wanted to read forever. And wow, what a novel. What a novel.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone.
Yeah. So just one last opportunity to vote if you joined late. We are about to close the poll. So let me just link it again. Every time I switch screens, you disappear for like half a second, Matt, which is great.
I know. I see you.
I don't know why that happened. You're on a whole nother screen. You're over here. I don't know why it does that. Damn you, Chrome. So yeah, last moments to vote in the poll if you showed up late. But looking at the results, I don't think it's going to matter, even if everyone here votes again, because it's looking like... Let me just refresh one more time. Yep, it is looking like Battle Royale will be our book for next month. It was a close one. It was a close one, but all right. Battle Royale. What do you know about this book, Matt?
There's a lot of votes happening as I'm watching. I don't know anything about.
It's still not enough. It's okay.
Battle Royale.
You don't know anything about Battle Royale? Anything?
I know that there's a Japanese movie about a big old Battle Royale where people kill each other, Hunger Games style, except it's probably more correct to call it Battle Royale style.
You can't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know, is this a book or is this a manga?
I'm pretty sure it's a book. I think they made a manga of it, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's just a book.
I have no
If it's
idea.
not, we won't do it.
Yeah, it says novel, but it's got a very pretty picture on the cover of the novel, which is confusing to me.
Well, see, the thing about covers is they put pictures on them normally.
But how am I supposed to judge it by its cover if they're gonna make the cover be misleading?
So there was a manga adaptation of it, so that might be what you're
Okay.
seeing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I gotta say, like, I saw this one and I was like, oh, I've heard of this before. I've seen the movie. I'm interested to see what this book is. I was a little surprised. This like I think the second month it appeared on the poll. I was a little surprised by the amount of support for it. So I'm curious to see what I think of this novel. So looking forward to reading it.
Interesting.
Yeah. But that will be next month, which is June. Thank you. It'll be June 27th, Friday night, June 27th. So we'll be meeting at 9:30 p.m. Central Time to discuss Battle Royale, and maybe I'll watch the movie too, just to go full circle, and read and reread all of the Hunger Games, and the Hunger Games. Did you know they made a new Hunger Games movie? Like, it came out like a year ago.
I literally did not. So
Something about
good job marketing
songbirds and snakes or something.
Nope.
Yeah, I think
Never heard
it's a prequel. I think it has to be a prequel, based on how the Hunger Games end. Man, remember the Hunger
Sounds-
Games?
I do. That was the whole thing.
Remember YA dystopian fiction?
I remember that. I remember all those movies. Yeah.
What is the hot YA trend now in fiction?
Well, young people don't read anymore.
Oh.
So yeah,
Oh.
it's just books. So books, books.
I do.
That's over now.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, yeah. But it was a good run. It was a good run.
Yeah, we had a good books.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. 1583 BC through 2024.
See, I was gonna make that joke, and then I realized I had no idea what year to start it as, and so I just declined not to.
I just kind of made up a number there. Yeah. Cool. Well,
yeah.
yes.
So I think actually after next month we're gonna shift to be it's gonna be TikTok Club, and so we're gonna meet every Friday, and we're gonna watch one TikTok, and then we're gonna talk about it for an hour.
Or 2 minutes.
Oh yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. If you like what we do here at Doof Media and you want to see more of it, then please head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/doofmedia and consider donating to support our organization. At any available level, you'll get access to the vote for the books we talk about each month, as well as a bunch of other exclusive features. So go check it out.
Yeah, we are in the work. Matt's doing some programming to do something cool that's going to be coming up, hopefully within a month or so. That'll be a patron exclusive thing that I think is going to be pretty cool. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, check out the From podcast, because we're having a great time with that one.
That's right.
If you have any questions or comments, or just want to reach out to us, you can find us on Reddit, reddit.com/r/doofmedia, on Instagram @doofmedia, or you can email us, doofmedia@gmail.com. Make sure you check out our new shiny website, doofmedia.com. It's very pretty. We like it a whole lot. And make sure you check out our other shows. We are in the middle of talking about The Haunting of Hill House right now on Flanagan's Wake. We are just halfway through the television series and having a great time. So if you haven't joined us on that, please do. We're having so much fun over there.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Aqua, John, Karen. Let me scroll up. Barrett, Bishop, everyone that came out today, and those of you that came out and just quietly listened. Thank you to everyone. I see Alex as well. Just want to make sure I don't miss anyone. If I've decided to read names, I can't. I have to say all the names. Thank you, everyone. This was a good time. I appreciate y'all's perspective on the book and all your great information. And we will see you next month.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Now I have to go through 7,000 tabs to hit end stream. There it is. End stream. Bye bye.
Bye.